Okay, let's watch Aurora family trying to move on after mysterious fire guts their home. And I'm going to go out on a limb on this one and say this was directed. And that this character right here with the heartbroken face doesn't seem to show the body mannerisms and the facial expression and the tone of voice of someone who actually went through what she just did. Like, something's off about her behavior, along with Denver Channel 7 saying they lost their home to the fire. And in another one, you'll see that it says they lost everything, where you can see they didn't lose their home and they didn't lose everything. It hit the cars and only the cars while they were sitting in the driveway. And I'm going to explain how I think this is actually a sales pitch, proof of product. And I'll explain that later of how I think this works. Basically to demonstrate that pinpoint accuracy of these directed energies to hit the car inside of the garage without hitting the rest of the house, passing right through the wiring and other metals that could pick up this energy like an antenna, and specifically hitting just the car. So I'm just going to let it play through the first time, then I'll go back and over some of the still frames.
Tonight, an Aurora family is left with just the clothes on their backs after a fire gutted their home.
All 4 family members escaped.
I lied. Did you hear what she just said? They're left with just the clothes on their backs. At another time, the reporting says they're worried about clothes and food and don't know what they're going to eat tonight. It's all scripted. Unbelievably scripted. These people didn't just lose everything. They're not just left with the clothes on their backs. They're not worried about where they're going to eat, but all the stuff that goes into the script makes it obvious that it's scripted.
The flames, but they're facing a tough road ahead. Here's Denver 7's Tom Mustin.
I took a deep breath in and I couldn't breathe, and I told the kids, run, let's get out of the house. The garage is basically on fire.
Tiffany's exactly. The garage was basically on fire. And I would venture to say that even the inside of the garage didn't completely burn, and that the fire did not go past the garage and only burned the garage, not the whole house. They didn't lose everything, as it says right there. Family loses everything, left with nothing but the clothes on their back. No, the garage, and only the garage. And it wasn't even the garage that burned, it was the 2 cars. This is definitely plasma fire. And I would say directed, and this is all scripted, theatrics, for the purpose of the sales pitch, to where in order to sell your services to someone, you don't have to have some black budget operation videotape that can be traced. You just show them the Channel 7 Denver News coverage of this house fire.
Stephen stood outside the rubble of her Aurora home, looking for perspective, days after losing everything in a Monday afternoon fire.
I'm glad
The rubble stood outside the rubble of her Aurora home, days after losing everything. Nothing burned but the garage.
it wasn't nighttime, because we wouldn't be here.
She's still trying to comprehend what happened.
Honestly, I'm still in shock. I'm still stuck in the magnitude of this. It's overwhelming, and I feel helpless.
Tiffany says she, her husband, and 2 daughters have been home on a typical day when she smelled smoke. The family raced outside with just the clothes on their backs and watched.
There they said it again, with just the clothes on their backs. That's how you know it's scripted. These reporters do what's called rip and read. They rip the script out of the, it used to be rip and read. When it was a paper script, they would rip off and read when they're reporting. Notice how scripted it is, talking about just the clothes on their backs. And the lady who's talking, it's her house. She said, "Oh, I'm glad it's not nighttime or we wouldn't be here." She seems as cold and callous and phony as anyone could be if she was talking about anything that she felt and she doesn't feel. The words that are coming out of her mouth do not match the vibratory frequency of the feelings that are coming out of her heart.
As her home went up in flames. The cause, unknown. What is known, the home is a total loss.
They were going to try and clean with...
The home is a total loss. You'll be able to see from the visual that they show that that's not true, but they keep repeating it. Almost like it's part of the insurance scam or something. But I think it's more than that. It's a sales pitch.
They can salvage what they can, but there's a lot of stuff that won't be salvaged.
Lost in the ash and rubble, their memories, their life.
We don't know how we're going to pay for in the next week, or the room for that matter. Today's my daughter's birthday. She turns 8, and having to deal with her feelings of not being able to be home.
And while Tiffany deals with the insurance company, she has bigger things on her mind. Clothes, housing, food, life.
Oh, the clothes. They got bigger things on their mind. Clothes, food. They don't know what they're going to eat. They left with only the clothes on their back. This is so phony. It's unbelievable.
And she's counting on her faith to pull them through.
We're just sort of don't know what we're doing for dinner. There's no structure. There's no routine. You know, your life is completely not your life anymore.
Tom Mustin.
She is trying to resemble the people that actually went through things like the Paradise Fire. But as you can see from this photo, their house, they didn't lose everything, as it says on the bottom. The 2 cars got plasma fired. Notice, I'll zoom in on some of these. This rim and tire still remains. This side, the rim got completely melted off. We're going to do some close-ups of these 2 cars that were in the garage as it caught fire, and it was only the cars that caught fire, not the garage itself. The only thing that happened to the inside of the garage was some of the flames from those burning cars burned the inside of the garage. Let's move on to some of the still frames, but here you can clearly see they didn't lose their whole house. They keep talking about, oh, the rubble, oh, we're worried about food and clothes on our back. They're trying to emulate and simulate people that went through real fires. Okay, so the link will be in the description, but this is that final scene they leave off with. I have all the visual evidence I need. I know 1,000% this is plasma fire. For one, how does a car burn so much harder on this side than on this side where the tire and the rim remain? And on this side, they'll show you that it's right down to the brake calipers. The rim is melted completely off. And that's why the car sits at an angle like that. Here you can see it's right down to the brake calipers. That's what this is. We'll zoom in on that in a moment. But what I want to show you also is all the rust. All this orange rust is just like those beams that were sticking up out of the pile of rubble on 9/11 that was designated the Cheeto effect by Judy Woods, who also brought us the term dustification. The other thing you'll notice about these cars is they're missing all of their glass, and the handles are burned right out of the metal. This is one of the key signatures, like the auto manufacturer in China that was hit with these directed energy weapons, and many other places like Paradise, California, and many other places. It burns the door handles right out because they're made out of a different type of metal. Right here, let's zoom in on that and show you that that's the brake caliper. Yet on the opposite side of that vehicle, it still has the tire and the rim. That's just one of the many ways I know for certain this is plasma fire. Another indicator is that it burns out all of the plastic, but you might think, well, that's plastic, so it burns easier. This is glass. That burns at a very high heat. All of the glass is missing out of both of these vehicles. 1,000% certainty this is plasma fire. No doubt. Here's that same vehicle. That's where the rim once bolted on to the hub. Again, notice all the orange rust all over the whole thing. Every square inch, there's a couple of shiny spots left on it for whatever reason. Fire doesn't rust a vehicle. You dump gasoline on a car and light it up. When it goes out, it's not rusty inside and out every square inch. That's what happened to these vehicles, rust. It's called electrolysis, and Mental Boost believes that it uses the smoke as a medium for ion exchange. This type of rust normally takes a long time, and it often uses water as the medium for ion exchange in the process of electrolysis. In this case, it happens instantly, and it uses the smoke that's surrounding as a medium for ion exchange, or at least that's the theory of our metallurgist friend in the Middle East. In the Northeast, who's very familiar with these type of plasma fires and knows that this rust is one of the characteristics, the key signatures of a plasma fire when it hits metal. They show you this picture of clothing still inside the vehicle. This is looking inside the vehicle. I don't know, I think these are the bench seats. I believe these are the seats that would fold down in the rear. This is clothing that remained untouched. Either that or they threw it in the vehicle afterward. Why would they do that? It's possible, but this is paper that's only slightly burned. The video link will be in the description so you can pause it for yourself. They focus in on this little slipper right here, this pink sandal right here, and you can see the shoes, the sandals, the clothes, they're all unburned. Fire don't do that. Only electric fire that leaves some materials completely untouched while incinerating others. Yet they're telling you they lost everything and left with only the clothes on their back. And I'll bet if you brought this to their attention, they would say, well, they threw those clothes in the burnt cars afterwards. Huh? That's the only explanation that would make any sense in the world that is between the known bookends of reality for most people. While over here, this looks like the speakers, where the speakers would go. Inside the doors, nothing remaining. Everything completely smoked, clothes still inside the cab. The only explanation is that they threw this half-burnt paper that remained unburned, and the clothing unburned in the car after it burned. And that makes zero sense. Only if you know how plasma fire works can you see these clothes and that paper were actually in those cars while they burned and remained untouched, just like that. 0% this wasn't plasma fire. 0%. Here's where they zoom in on this slipper with the paper right here in front of it. Barely singed along the edges. Totally unburned right here. That paper and those clothes were literally in the car while they burned. Right at the first, the reporter says, she's still trying to understand what happened here. As they zoom in and show you this part right here and show you a close-up of this part right here, where the metal on the outside of the building is completely burned with these slats in it, but the wooden beams on the inside are unburned. We're going to show you where they show you that right now. I just wanted you to see on the building, where on the building they show you that right as he says, she's still trying to figure out what happened here. Tell her to give me a call. I'll tell her what happened here. This unburnt wood here and unburnt wood here, but you can clearly see the unburnt wood there, yet this metal burned so much it's completely disintegrated, vaporized in these strips across. I think it's sheet metal or some sort of outer shell of the housing, paneling of whatever type. But this could not be that burned, and this would be completely untouched. Remember these horizontal strips? I'm about to show you some more burn pattern that matches this burn pattern of these horizontal strips. So that's where we were just looking right here. And now we're going to go look over here at more of these horizontal striped burns, and there's more over there on the other side of the house too. Fire doesn't burn and leave more burned stripes along the side. Not regular fire anyway. So this is 1000% certainty plasma fire. No doubt about it. Fire doesn't do that. And as you can see, it only got the garage where the cars were parked in the garage. Looks like a 2-car garage, I suppose. Those stripes don't happen with anything but plasma fire. So they start out with these firefighters standing in front of her house right as the smoke is still rising. They've obviously just barely put the cars out. And it says family loses everything. And obviously the only thing they lost was those 2 cars in this garage and in this garage. Maybe they were both parked in one garage, but I believe one was here and the other was there. And there's nothing in the driveway, and then they pull them out. Here you can see how much flame was coming from that one part of the house. Inferno. And the only thing that burned was the cars. About the least flammable material in the whole house is those cars. Metal, rubber, seating, foam, that's all pretty much flame resistant stuff. Yet you can see the house itself is not on fire, not burnt on the, it ends up being scorched. But right now, the only thing on fire in there is those cars. I believe these are all even in sequence as they go through and run their scam on you. Whether it's an insurance scam, I'm going to talk in a minute about how I think this works. I can see 1000%. This is plasma fire. The rust, the missing door handles, the missing glass, the temperatures that it takes to get that glass out of there is huge. So the fact that nothing burned but the cars shows that this was directed in and it went right through the garage, completely missing the wiring of the house and anything else that might have picked it up like an antenna, and was directed specifically at the cars. The rust, the missing door handles, the missing glass. Zero doubt this is plasma fire. And the way the lady acts and the scripted storyline of the reporters seems like they're all in on it. Like it's a calling card. In fact, we might even want to call this phone number back here, ask them if we can order some of that dew, if we can direct it at one of our enemies. We got a guy that we want to send some of that shit to. That might be the calling card, the phone number. This is actually the first time I've seen that. I don't want him to hit me, but it's 303-991-0600. I'm going to have to call him up. Who knows? Maybe that's the moving van across the street. But right as I said calling card, I saw that phone number in the back. And that's what I believe this is. In order to sell and monetize this type of technology, you have to prove that it works. And that's what this was. A proof that we can direct it with such specific precision. We can burn the cars inside the garage without burning the house or the garage. And then have the people on the news say, oh, they lost everything. It's a tragedy. They got nothing but the clothes on their back. They're looking for food. They don't know what they're going to eat. And they're crying the same song as people who really suffered in places like Paradise and other places. Here's more of those burned stripes. Right here. These aren't the same ones that we looked at a minute ago. And that's not on the boards that they put up afterwards. That's actually on the material of the house. These lines that are burnt, more so than the wood in between them, there's unburnt wood in between these burnt stripes. Fire don't do that. Fire don't do that at all. And this is the shot they show right as the reporter saying she's still trying to figure out just what happened here. As should everybody be trying to figure out what happened here when they're showing you. So this scene shows the two different spots of striped burning. Striped burning here and striped burning here on this corner. That corner is where we just looked at. So we've already gone over both of the striped burning areas. One over here. You might be able to see a little more in there right here. But definitely the corner we just looked at over there. Striped burning on along this corner as well. And it's like the cameraman shows you and highlights the features that I would highlight when I'm trying to prove that this is plasma fire, like this highly burned spot in the middle of all this unburned wood. Like it's a calling card. In order to sell your services, if you're the one pulling the levers on these dues, you don't have to send them a link to some Black Ops video that they got to keep and delete it like Inspector Gadget. This message will self-destruct. No, you just tell them, hey, watch this Channel 7 Denver and tell me if you want us to direct that at one of your enemies, or you can sell it to one of your enemies. If you buy 10 kilowatts off of us, well, how do I know that you can actually direct it anywhere you want, not just some garage where you've already preset some detonation charges and antennas to receive it? They say, well, you tell us when and where you want it directed and we'll direct it. And they say, hey, Kathy, hey, Sally, you know, these are like men in black in a room with other men in black making a deal on buying 10 kilowatts of this directed energy in 5 different shots. You'll place me 10 kilowatts and I can place it in 5 different shots, but you got to prove that you can actually direct it. Hit Sally's house over here tomorrow, 3 p.m. You got it. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Sally's house. That way, we're the one who said what time, what place, and we know that it's not a unique location with special antennas set up inside, that you can really do this anytime, any place. We tell you when and where, and you show that you can direct it in that way. And then we'll buy 10 kilowatts off you. Okay, deal. And then once they've proved that they got the skills to pay the bills, then they can monetize this stuff. Then the guy that bought the 10 kilowatts and he's got 5 directed energy shots that he can tell him to place whenever, wherever he wants, he can either direct it at his enemies or he can sell it to other people using this Channel 7 advertisement for their services. And if the guy says, you prove to me that you can place it, he said, all right, I got 5 shots. I'll waste one of them just in proof of concept. And he becomes a middleman, like a downline salesman, like multi-level marketing. As soon as you buy 5 shots, you can sell them to someone. All you got to do is prove that you can call the shots. You call up your guy, say, okay, King Habibi from Saudi Arabia, he wants me to place one of these at the Prince Hadifa's harem. He wants me to smoke his harem out of their okay. Call your guys, they pull the levers. This Saudi prince is paying you billions of dollars after you show him you got the skills to pay the bills and that you'll sell him the other 4 shots you have remaining from the 10 kilowatts that you bought from the men in black. That's how they sell this stuff. These news coverage articles, this is how they sell it. This is like a brochure to highlight our services and show you what we can do. And to anyone with the eyes to see, you can see damn well what's happening here. And that the newsman is in on it by the way they read the script and the way the lady tells the story. And the fact that nothing's burnt other than the 2 cars. It can completely miss the house itself and burn only the cars And when you can see that on one side it completely melted the rim off, but on the other side it still has the tire on the rim, the difference between the heat on one side of the car and the other. The people that are dealing in this, they don't need people like me to convince them. They know what they're looking at. When there's unburnt clothes inside of the vehicle, what more do you need? The average person, doesn't matter how much proof you put right in front of their face, they'll never see what's right in front of their face because they don't want to. They don't want to believe it, so they literally can't see it. Your eyes are only capable of seeing what your mind is capable of perceiving, and your mind is only capable of perceiving what you are capable of emotionally processing. This rust, fire don't do that. The missing glass, the missing door handles, and just the way they present the whole thing, it's a presentation, it's a sales pitch. Probably to show you that we've even got the news in on it, that we'll pay off your script readers to read whatever script we want. And they worked a sales pitch in right there too, because it's so blatantly obvious. They didn't lose everything. They didn't leave with just the clothes on their back. They're not wondering where they're going to eat tonight. It's all so scripted. It's sickening. And this would be their CIA-trained saleswoman. Watch again and listen closely.
Tonight, an Aurora family is left with just the clothes on their...
Oops, take two.
Tonight, an Aurora family is left with just the clothes on their backs after a fire gutted their home.
All 4 family members escaped the flames, but they're facing a tough road ahead. Here's Denver 7's Tom Mustin.
I took a deep breath in and I couldn't breathe, and I told the kids, run, let's get out of the house. The garage is basically on fire.
Tiffany Stevens stood outside the rubble of her Aurora home, looking for perspective, days after losing everything in a Monday afternoon fire.
I'm glad it wasn't nighttime, because we wouldn't be here.
She's still trying to comprehend what happened.
Honestly, I'm still in shock. I'm still stuck in the magnitude of this. It's overwhelming, and I feel helpless.
Tiffany says she, her husband, and 2 daughters have been home on a typical day when she smelled smoke. The family raced outside with just the clothes on their backs and watched as their home went up in flames. The cause, unknown. What is known, the home is a total loss.
They're going to try and clean what they can, salvage what they can, but there's a lot of stuff that won't be salvaged.
Lost in the ash and rubble, their memories, their life.
We don't know how we're going to pay for in the next week, and or the room.
The hotel room.
Matter. Today's my daughter's birthday. She turns 8, and having to deal with her feelings of not being able to be home.
And while Tiffany deals with the insurance company, she has bigger things on her mind: clothes, housing, food, life. And she's counting on her faith to pull them through.
We're just sort of don't know what we're doing for dinner. There's no structure, there's no routine. You know, your life is completely not your life anymore.
Tom Mustin, Denver 7.
Oh, the humanity! Oh, the humanity! I hope you can see how fake all this is.
Tonight, an Aurora family is left with just the clothes on their backs after a fire gutted their home.
All 4 family members escaped the flames, but they're facing a tough road ahead. Here's Denver 7's Tom Mustin.
I took a deep breath in and I couldn't breathe, and I told the kids, run, let's get out of the house. The garage is basically on fire.
Tiffany Stevens stood outside the rubble of her Aurora home, looking for perspective, days after losing everything in a Monday afternoon fire.
I'm glad it wasn't nighttime, because we wouldn't be here.
She's still trying to comprehend what happened.
Honestly, I'm still in shock. I'm still stuck in the magnitude of this. It's overwhelming, and I feel helpless.
Tiffany says she, her husband, and 2 daughters have been home on a typical day when she smelled smoke. The family raced outside with just the clothes on their backs and watched as their home went up in flames. The cause, unknown. What is known, the home is a total loss.
They're going to try and clean what they can, salvage what they can, but there's a lot of stuff that won't be salvaged.
Sounds like an insurance scam when they're saying the home is a total loss. They're trying to salvage what they can, and you can see from the images the home is not a total loss. It was only the cars. There's unburned wood on the inside of the garage.
Lost in the ash and rubble, their memories, their life.
We don't know how we're going to pay for in the next week, and or the room for that matter. Today's my daughter's birthday. She turns 8, and having to deal with her feelings of not being able to be home.
And while Tiffany deals with the insurance company, she has bigger things on her mind: clothes, housing, food, life. And she's counting on her faith to pull them through.
We're just sort of...
They're pulling on your heartstrings. It's my daughter's birthday, trying to deal with my little girl's feelings, and they're counting on their faith. They're pulling all the heartstrings, trying to get all the emotional, suck the bone marrow right out of your soul with all the words that they're trying to pull your heartstrings with.
Don't know what we're doing for dinner. There's no structure, there's no routine.
Oh.
You know, your life is completely not your life anymore.
Tom Mustin, Denver 7.